Hello, everyone. Welcome to day 3 of the workshop. I hope that you've enjoyed the workshop so far. This is the final day of presentations. And today's topic is about citizen science for shark ray and chimera research and conservation. Just as a reminder, we conclude the presentations today, but we have an interactive networking session tomorrow where you can meet the panelists and discuss your work with like-minded shark scientists. It starts an hour later than usual, so it starts at 12:30 GMT, so please do remember the shift in time. We also want to remind you that we have planned a set of focus groups to discuss the future of human dimensions work in the shark sciences. You must have received an email about this already. If you have conducted research or published on this topic, please fill out the form. We'll put the link in the chat box. As we've done over the last 2 days, we'll have our speakers present their talks first, followed by a Q&A session. You can feel free to add in your questions in the chat section of the stage tab, and feel free to add them as and when they strike you. We will collate them and present them to the speakers during the Q&A time that's available today as well as tomorrow. Also, we will present you with some poll questions in between the talks, just to get an idea of what you think or feel about different topics. Polls on the previous day have been quite useful to sort of get the conversation going and to also help speakers give a little more insight when they answer questions. So please do participate. Our lineup of talks today is very exciting. It's going to take us from Indonesia all the way to Mexico with stops in Madagascar and maybe Europe or the United States. We will start today with a talk by Faqih Akbar Algozhali, who is the co-founder and project leader for Elasmobranch Project Indonesia. He'll talk about his work with the Indonesian Elasmobranch Citizen Science Network in a talk titled Citizen Science for Elasmobranch Conservation in Indonesia. So over to you.
Good day, everyone. My name is Faqih Akbar Algozhali from Elasmobranch Project Indonesia. Thank you to the IUCN Shock Specialist Group of the Human Dimension Working Group for holding this beautiful event. And hopefully I can share a little bit about our work on citizen science to support Elasmobranch conservation in Indonesia. And I hope you can bring something back to your work based on the lesson learned from the things that we did here in Indonesia. So to start this sharing information, this is the basis of why we do citizen science for shark conservation in Indonesia. So basically we have lots of diversity of Elasmobranch species. We have vast areas of islands, but unfortunately we have limited resources, as well as we are still referring to an old reference back in 2006 related to shark and ray species diversity. So the work that we do first initiated in the species diversity across Indonesia. And this is why we use citizen science, because we have been able to cover more area. We can save the cost and time initially needed for research expedition, and we can also involve community education by raising awareness of the contributors of the citizen science. So we actually started as a web-based project in 2020. So we created this website where people can submit their data. We started slow, we started small, and we've only been able to collect limited encounters of sharks and rays in some location in Indonesia, as you can see here in the map example, and the low numbers of encounters here, around 150 encounters in our first year. So the basis of the work that we do with citizen science is to try to keep it simple as possible, so we can engage as much people as possible, but with room for complexities. So we try to put ourselves in the seat of the audience or the users. So if you can see here, this is the only mandatory information that we would like to collect from the contributors, including date, time, location of their encounter with the sharks and rays, the province, and of course, the most important one is the photo, so we can be confident of the species that they encounters, and we will help them with their identification. And then we add another page where they can, if they want to input more information, including the species, the weight, the length, and other information that they feel, they will be able and they have the time to do it. Because not every citizen scientist would want to be a real scientist like we do. So this is the room for complexities that I mentioned. So we keep it there, but it's optional for them to do if they want to. And in 2021, we created this Indonesian Elasmobile Citizen Science Network to boost the data collection for our web-based project by training youth from across the provinces in Indonesia. So we did this to boost the data collection in each provinces and to have resources ready to help researchers and conservation practitioners in the event they want to do any field activities with them. And in 2023, 3.5 years later, you can see here we made a huge improvement with over 750 encounters recorded. And as you can see here in the Indonesian map that we have more robust information, more species being discovered. And we also made this leaderboard so they can see, so the contributors can see we've been submitting more contribution to the website, to the platform. We've been able to see the visual of the species as well. And most notably here, we want to show you that we've managed to discover a new species that previously have not been recorded in Indonesia. And then there's also this huge finding of the ornate eagle ray, which is a rare species to be seen. And for Indonesia as well, you can see here the zebra shark and the bald-mouthed guitarfish, which is a critically endangered species, is rarely to be seen alive, and we've got some encounters for this species, which is amazingly great. And this is another prideful moment for us, is where the Ministry of the Maritime Affairs and Fisheries, they've actually requested information from citizen science data on these 3 species, the whale sharks, the manta rays, and the other one is the epaulet sharks, which is now fully protected thanks to the work of various NGOs and government entities here. So we can say that it's a win for citizen science in Indonesia. We've also did some interaction with the contributors. So the leaderboard that we made, so it's a fun competition for them. We also appreciate them on social media by putting their names in it, trying not to take their credits. We also made their encounters into a story and highlighting the efforts that they did to support shark and rays conservation through citizen science. And then moving forward, this year, we would like to create a new part of the citizen science network that I mentioned. We call it the Elasmo Body. Basically, we try to focus more now in dive and tourism operators, looking at more information were submitted from divers. So the basic of this Elasmo Body is by having pro bono give and take with them, where they can help encourage their guests to take photos of sharks and rays, submitting it to our website. And in return, we will provide them with promotion in our website and social media that their tourism operating is integrating conservation activities that will be a great economical value boost to their operation. And now, after we talk a little about the general citizen science for shark and rays, we try to integrate this citizen science stuff on species-specific projects. So we have 2 projects right now ongoing. The first one is the Rain Race project. It's a project focusing on giant gutterfish and wedgefish. And in this project, we implemented citizen science to encourage fishers to report their catches or sighting of giant gutterfish and wedgefish, as well as live releasing them if possible, right? So First, before we did, the workshop or trying to encourage the fishers to do the citizen science, we first need to understand what their perception is towards the species. So in summary, after we did some assessment, it turns out the species are bycatch, and they are willing to release the juvenile and the small size one because they have less economical value compared to the bigger one. So from this, we uh, we implemented citizen science with options for the local fishers, which turns out to have a huge impact to their decision here, which is a great positive start for us in Karimun Jawa. So as you can see with the gray bars here, most of the features they choose this B option or the gray one, which is to share their information about the Girafish and Wedgefish catch, while also be willing to release specimens below 1 meters. This is a great start, although they are still, kind of reluctant to release the big one. But this is a great start because we don't force them to do anything they don't want to do, because fishing is already a huge work for them and it's tiring, and we don't want to force them. And back to the basic, we want to try to keep it simple. And from the citizen science that will be implemented with them, as you can see here, we got 2 videos sent to us by the local fishers. One is a bamboo shark release, and another one is the big finding of a school of wedgefish swimming gently to, near the port where we used to hang out in the national park. And this is sent through the WhatsApp group of the local fishers that we made with them after the workshop. So it's been great. It's a great progress, but we've also received catch report from one of the fishers that we know, but he wasn't part of the workshop, and we got 2 reports from him. So looking at this, there are some lessons learned that we have to integrate to the citizen science in the Karimun Jawa moving forward. The first one would be to be more frequent in providing monitoring to the trained fishers in the citizen science group. But this also does not mean that the fishers outside of the group are not willing to share their report of Girafish and Wedgefish. And we have to keep the group running. We have to keep the network running with information of conservation, and as well as we may need a new concept of a place-to-place basis workshop to cover more areas, to cover more features related to the citizen science effort. And the second one will be another different project called the Calabiar project. So this is basically a project focusing on the epaulet shark in Raja Ampat region in Indonesia, where we will be focusing in the tourism operators instead of the local fishers. But additionally, later we will also involve the local community and the local authority as well. So the basis of this citizen science will be photo identification, which in our project, there will be a research to verify this method by also using the capture marker capture to verify that the photo ID really works for the species in Indonesia. Although it has been confirmed in Australia that epaulet shark does a unique fingerprint for each individual. But this is the basis of what we want to use for the citizen science and what we want to apply to the tourism operators. And we will also be using manual verification and also softwares to help us with the scientific new approach for the species. And in the final, we want to create a citizen science platform specific for the species, where tourism operators and local authority will be able to use to collect information or to do their scientific monitoring on the species. Now the question is how this citizen science will be applied. So it's really easy. We need to understand how the species is ecologically and how it is with the local communities there. So we found out that the species are nocturnal and it's easier to find them by snorkeling in the night. They can also be found while beach walking. So this is the way that we recommended them to do, but while making sure of their safety. And the second one, they will want to use the torch as an equipment that we recommend them to use. And simply, they just have to take their photo ID of the fingerprint region that we highlighted here in the red dashed square. So they can take either the right-hand side or the left-hand side of the sharks, while also making sure that they don't touch the shark. This is the basic of implementing conservation in the citizen science. And since we've also been tagging the sharks later, they will be able to take notes of which color the tagging was when they encountered the sharks. Red means it was tagged as a pups, and yellow means it was tagged as an adult, which will be able to help us to tell whether the pups grows and how the patterns change and how long will it take for them to grow and other ecologically important information. They will also be able, just like the general information of the shark encounters I mentioned in the beginning, they will be able to also inform us about their location, type of substrate, what's the approximate totaling of the sharks, what's the tag color in the number, and what is the unique behavior of the sharks. Because little information as well for where they laid their eggs, where they mate, if there's any sexual aggregation for the species. So this is really going to be a great project for the tourism operators there. And basically later they can just submit it through the platform that we will provide them. So it's gonna be easy, keeping it to the basic. Let's keep it simple for them. Let's keep it so anyone can contribute. So the summary from the citizen science stuff that we've implemented here in Indonesia is that first, you have to know the situation and the issue of the community or the environment to apply the best citizen science approach, right? And then you have to know the species, what's its value to the community, and what will it bring to the citizen science. And then always come up with something easy. You don't want to complicate stuff. You don't want to create something difficult that people in the end will not use. And then you have to facilitate them as much as possible. And then you also have to, monitor the citizen science, create maintenance frequently, so you know that the citizen science is really used and not just left alone in the end. And then finally, citizen science may look messy. There will be information with different qualities, information with different subjectivity to it, different description of its species. But in the result, citizen science information may be scientific research performed by experts. I can guarantee you that. So thank you. That's all I can share for now. It's been a great honor for us to share about our work with citizen science for shark rays in Indonesia. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the really interesting presentation. It was really great to see, how much detail you can collect from a citizen science project, but also how much cooperation you need to really work across this kind of a large scale. And I think I definitely did not recognize until now how much effort it's required to really keep contributors motivated. Having said that, we have another exciting talk coming up next from two speakers, Christelle Razfindrakoto and Ravaka Ranaivoson from Madagascar. Ravaka is the Marine Conservation Director, and Christelle is a junior scientific officer at the Wildlife Conservation Society in Madagascar. And they will be talking about using citizen science for the conservation of sharks and rays in Madagascar's remote MPAs. So over to you both.
Hello everyone, my name is Ravaka, Marine Conservation Director at WCS Madagascar. I and my colleague Christelle Razfindrakoto, who is in charge of marine ecological surveys, are happy to share with you our experiences on citizen science for the conservation of shark and rays in Madagascar remote MPAs. But to start with, let us just give an overview of marine conservation works in Madagascar. Our goal is to achieve a well-managed coastal marine areas that maintain important marine habitats and species, enabling local communities to live climate resilience and food secure lives. To achieve this goal, our intervention focus on 4 pillars. The first one is on area-based conservation, setting up and managing MPAs, and also setting up and give technical support to LMNAs. The second focuses on a policy and national framework related to marine resource management based on the data from the area-based conservation. The third focus is on applied research on marine conservation targets, governance, and social science to improve the marine resource management. The last but not the least one is on capacity development for stakeholders involved in marine management, as previously the conservation in Madagascar was focused on terrestrial component, and this capacity development on marine conservation is quite important in Madagascar. Shark and rays are among the conservation targets that WCS is working on. For in Madagascar, we work mainly on 3 seascapes in the northwest part of Madagascar. The second seascape is in Antangil Bay, comprising the Makira, Maswal, and Antangil Bay, the Mama Bay scapes. And the third one is on the southern part of Madagascar, the southwest seascape. In this area-based management, our objective is to maintain the ecological integrity of marine areas, conserve the biodiversity and ecosystem services in this prioritized site, improve communities' livelihood in and around the seascape where we're working, and also setting up and ensure sustainability of management mechanism of the site. These objectives require applied research to support management measures of key species, habitat, MPAs, and LMNAs, but also we work on co-management of this area-based conservation through a local community engagement, effective engagement and commitment, and also involvement of these local communities in the participative monitoring, so as to ensure that they are also a part of the decision-making process. So to get back to the shark and rays context in Madagascar and with these 3 MPAs where we are working, increase of shark we have noticed through the socioeconomic surveys, ecological surveys, and catch parent effort surveys that there is an increase of shark and ray catches, including threatened species. So since 2016, we ran a participative catch parent effort surveys to improve information on shark and ray fishing practices that will serve us on adjusting and improving also the management measures of the 2 taxa. So how does this CPUZ or catch parent effort data collection work? There are 3 key main stakeholders involved in the process. The fishers phase first, who is in charge of declaring the fishing effort, the time, the fishing timing, fishing gears, what kind of product they caught. They also share relevant information that will help us in data analysis also. And they are part of the decision institution when reviewing the management measures of the taxa. The second component that are key also, which is a key component, key stakeholder in this CPU data collect process is the local community CPUE agent who is in charge of the data collection on catch effort using photos and Kobo toolbox. But prior to ensuring the data collection, they benefit from training on data collection, and they also are in charge of awareness raising for fisher to participate into the surveys, to the catch period effort surveys. And then there is WCS who is in charge of data analysis and also ensure that the result of the analysis is presented to the local community so that we can jointly review management measures with them as part of a co-management approach. WCS also provides capacity development for the CPUE agent on data collection through training, but also providing them with the suitable equipment. As you see in this slide, we have on the left side the poster we use for presenting the results to local communities, result of the surveys, the catch surveys analysis, and how do we use this data to improve management measures. So we have first the data on species, the name, the size of weight, but are really relevant for awareness raising on shark and rays using also IUCN category. So this will help us sensitizing people on which species are key important, why should they be protected, identifying the targeted villages and the stakeholders on this awareness raising, and identifying the suitable communication channel to for these stakeholders. The data on fishing practices like the gears, the location of the fishing zone, and the use of the catch, is it for consumption or for sales, will help us identifying on the suitable targets for the livelihood activities, who is involved in the practices in the catch of shark and rays fishing, and should be like, if you want to change behavior, who should be targets. These data also help us on the promotion of suitable fishing practices, and also for the demarcation of the no-take zone, but also setting up some temporary closure for some fishing areas. In addition to all these above measures, the global awareness raising campaign is really important, and this awareness raising covers socioeconomic as well as ecological value of shark and rays. So far, there are key successes that has been achieved, among which the integration of the updated management measure for shark and rays into the marine protected area social convention. So it applies the ban of catch of threatened species, also increasing the fine for the related to the shark and rays catch, among the success is also the use of regulated fishing gears and integration of community patrols into management. So once we included the management measure, improved management measures for shark and rays in the convention, local communities, local patrol, community control and surveillance are also in charge of ensuring that the regulation has been accepted and followed by the local communities. And in 2022 also, we've started expanding the data collection to other sites based on the result of the previous data analysis that help us identify also the relevant areas where we should be work. However, there are some challenges that remains, mainly in terms of capacity of the CPU agent, whereas they are located in remote area and where the rate of illiteracy is very high. So we provide capacity development and also support, permanent support to local to the CPU agent and data collection. Later on, this year we're gonna launch the literacy campaign that targets the CPU agent also. The challenge also is identifying the suitable measures to reduce bycatch, along with identifying the catch report, using how can we translate the scientific data to information that is accessible to local communities. And there is also this weak law enforcement that can help us reduce the catch of shark and rays, as the area where we are working are quite remote. The intervention of law enforcement agents are quite challenging. So there are some steps that has been discussed with the Ministry of Fisheries, with the Department of Fisheries in the field on improving this law enforcement application, and also we've allowed to reduce risk catch. So there is a lot of awareness raising campaign, promotion of livelihoods that we are promoting in the sites, along with the promotion of sustainable fishing practices. And that leads us to the end of our presentation. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Christelle and Ravaka, for your really interesting work with fishers and local communities in this data-poor region. Next, we have Maria del Pilar Blanco, who is an associate research scientist at the National Council of Science and Technology in Mexico. Her talk is titled Citizen Science as a Tool to Get Baseline Ecological and Biological Data on Sharks and Rays in a Data-Poor Region. So over to Pilar.
Hi, everybody. Thank you very much for the invitation to present here what we are doing with citizen science in monitoring sharks and rays in the Mexican Caribbean. I am Pilar Blanco. I am a professor and researcher for the University of Quintana Roo in Mexico. And what we are going to present is how we use citizen science as a tool to get baseline ecological and biological data on sharks and rays in the Mexican Caribbean. So Mexico is the third country in elasmobranch's biodiversity, and also is the fourth country in shark catches in the world. The fisheries, we have in the country fisheries that are multi-specific coastal and industrial fisheries for sharks and rays in both coasts, but especially in the Mexican Caribbean, we have artisanal. Most of the fisheries are artisanal and coastal. In the Mexican Caribbean, we have 85 species of elasmobranchs. Is about 41% of the Mexican diversity and 47% of the West Central Atlantic region diversity. In this region, we have the elasmobranchs are part of fisheries, as I told you. Most of the fisheries are coastal, artisanal, and use gill nets and long lines to catch sharks and rays. And most of the meat are consumed locally, because here we have a dish that is made on with using sharks and rays. So sharks and rays are part of the diet of the people here, and so have a very important cultural. Is very important for as a cultural thing here. About tourism is a recently, well, is very new activity, and we have a very important activity, especially for whale shark, because we have a very huge aggregation in the north part of the Mexican Caribbean. But also manta rays are part of this activity, and we recently have an activity on bull sharks that is have become a very important activity, and is one of the very famous spots around the world to dive with bull sharks. So the sharks and rays have become a very important thing for tourism, and that is one of the main reasons that sharks and rays have become also important for conservation. Okay, about the conservation of these species, we have around 50% of the species that we have in this region are in one of the endangered categories in the IUCN Red List for endangered species. And also we have several species that are included in the Appendix 2, especially with the recent new species that are all the carcarinids and hammerheads. And also we have 2 species distributed here that are in Appendix 1. In Mexico, we have 2 management tools that are very important, that are the 2 norms or laws that have some management strategy for sharks. And one is related with fisheries. We have a special norm that regulates the fisheries on sharks and rays and protect some of the species from are forbidden for fisheries in the country. And we also have the wildlife norm that included 7 species that are protected in Mexico. So why we choose to use citizen science? Because in this region, we have a very low information, and the area is a very big area. And also we have one of the most important diving activity and diving spots in the world here, because we are part of the Mesoamerican Reef. So we have a lot of divers that come here to dive and to explore the reefs here. So we believe that if these people are at the sea every day, we can get a lot of information about sharks and rays from them. So our goal was to explore the utility of citizen science based on divers, collect baseline data on diversity and distribution of elasmobranchs in the Mexican Caribbean. So what we do was to, the first step was to visit several diving shops in several spots in the region, and in each diving store we do some interviews to the diving guides, dive masters and instructors that were there, that used to go with the divers, and we also extend an invitation to and also told them about our program to be part of our research and monitoring of sharks and rays. And so we asked them if they want to be part of this project. So also we design the sighting reports. In these sighting reports, we try to collect several information about the species, especially the ID of the species that they have seen. But also we try to collect some information about some environmental information, as the depth, the temperature, the time of the day, and also if they saw any behavior, the special behavior on sharks. For example, a shark that is hunting a ray, for example. We have several reports on that. And if they are feeding, or they have any kind of special behavior, so they can also report this in our sighting reports. The sighting reports were printed, and also we put this in a Google form and share both to all the divers that expressed the intention to be part of the project. Also, we make several workshops, not only for divers, but also for rangers of the natural protected areas that we have here in the region. So in this way, we train them to identify the species that usually we can see when we are diving here, and to reduce the misidentification in the reports. Also, we design this ID guide and give it to them to help them to identify the species if they have any doubt about the what species in the identification of the species. And also this guide was also used for them to show the divers, the tourists that visit our region, and explain that they are part of this program and are helping in do research on sharks and rays and monitoring for conservation. Okay, so we do 79 interviews in this region, in the locations, in each of the in all the locations in the Mexican Caribbean. And what we found was that most of the divers can identify at least 22 species of sharks and rays, and these species were the most common species that they found here. And they also the species that were most famous, or that the divers know better or see most frequently, was Ipanus americanus and Urobatus jamaicensis, and the North shark Hindimostomum cirratum, the bull shark and manta rays, and the Caribbean reef shark. And well, also these interviews help us to know about what is the perception of the divers about the population trends. So we have some questions about what they think about what is happening with the population, if the population are decreasing or increasing, and what are the causes, the threats for these species here in the Mexican Caribbean. So 81% of the divers that we interviewed told us that told us or have the perception that the populations are decreasing, and they report that the threats are fisheries in first place, but also the climate change. So that is what they think is have the effect, the most effect or more effect in the decrease of the populations here. Okay, about what we found about the participation and interest of the divers. Well, at least 90% of the divers said that they want to be part of the monitoring, but at the end, only 20% of them were actively sending us reports and sending pictures and all of this. We lost a lot of people, as you can see, but at least we have one diver in each location. So that was good because we don't lose any location. So we have at least information for one diver on each of these locations. And so we can get data on all the area that we want. So at the end, 499 sighting reports of the elasmobranchs. We received 499 sighting reports in 29 months, but we currently are still receiving sightings. So now we have more than 1,000 of reports, and also most of the species that was reported mostly, or the most abundance, or with the most amount, the major amount of sighting, was the white-spotted eagle ray and the manta rays. Why? Because these species used to do aggregations, and also, for example, in the case of the manta rays, we only have a report of this species most of the reports were in one spot. That was the spot where they used to aggregate with the whale shark. And also, and for the white-spotted eagle rays, because of that, also we have a lot of this species used to have big aggregations. So we have a lot of reports because they have a season in Cancun that they used to aggregate, and so we have a lot of reports, but only in these places. But for example, for the Ipanus americanus, this species was found in all the locations. So it is a common and widespread species here in the region, and also the yellow stingray, Urobatus jamaicensis. For sharks, of course, the North shark was the species. The North shark and the Caribbean reef shark were the species that have the most amount of sightings, and also the third species was the great hammerhead. And this is very useful because now we know where are the places that we have that the great hammerhead used to be, because it is a critical endangered species. So now we have this information about the distribution, and also in parallel, we'll have information about the fishery grounds that are using the fishers to catch sharks. So now we can help with the regulation of these two things. About the distribution, the citizen science help us to know the distribution, so have these kind of maps about where the species are. And at the end, well, citizen science was a very good tool to collect data on sharks and rays diversity, distribution, and abundance here in the Mexican Caribbean, because we have a lot of divers, and so we have a lot of people that can help us to collect the data. Was very useful to collect baseline data, especially because we have a very low amount of data from this region. So now we have a very good picture about what is happening with sharks, where are them, what species are, and what happened, what are the habitats that have been used by or that the critical endangered species are using. So now we can focus on these spots. Citizen science need a constant follow-up with divers, because if you don't go and have contact with them, you can lose them, and so you are not getting data. The results that we compare, we were also doing underwater visual census, and we compare with our data collected by citizen science with our underwater visual census, and were very similar in diversity and also in distribution of the species. And also citizen science was a very good tool to build capacity and education here. So now divers have more information about ecological aspect of sharks, about the species that are distributed here, about the conservation status, how they spread the word with the divers that are visiting our region, and help us to make consciousness, or to spread the word about the conservation and what we need to do to preserve these species in this region and in the world. So thank you very much for all of you, for your attention, and for all our founders that help us to do this research, and for all the divers that are part of our program that help us to collect this data.
Thank you so much for the great presentation. I was struck by how similar the situation is in Mexico compared to Indonesia and many other parts of the global south. It was also good, like a good reminder that, getting people involved in citizen science and keeping them there is quite hard. And it can be really biased towards the locations that people like to go to or the species that people are really interested in. Just a reminder to the audience, keep your questions coming in so we can kind of, have some time for the people to think about them as well, the speakers. And now we are on to the last speaker of the workshop, Francesco Ferretti, who is an assistant professor of fisheries management and conservation at Virginia Tech in the United States. He will be talking about how we can go from data deficient to big data in shark conservation.
Hello all, thank you for this invite to present our work on shark polls. This is a vision of how to transition shark conservation from data deficient to big data. Many shark populations are declining worldwide because vulnerable to the impact of coastal and industrial fishing. They were abundant bycatch historically in most commercial fisheries, and since the 1980s, their exploitation has escalated because of the shark fin trade. The IUCN estimates that a third of elasmobranch species are threatened with extinction, placing sharks among the most threatened vertebrates in the ocean. But the more insidious problem is that for many shark species there are still important knowledge gaps in ecology and biology and not enough data on abundance, distribution and mortality to produce robust population assessments. We urgently need to fill this information gap quickly and cost effectively. Shark Polls responds to this need. This is a crowdsourcing initiative with the goal of collecting images of sharks worldwide and converting them into sightings. A few years ago, I brought my parents whale watching in Monterey Bay. It was a spectacular day with more than 40 humpback whales in the area. We approached a couple of them and immediately all visitors started taking pictures. What struck me the most was that almost no one on board had a regular camera. Most of them were using smartphones. When you take a picture with a smartphone, you store auxiliary data on your file. This includes geolocation, time, and other technical parameters that can be used to generate useful species abundance and distribution data. With this in mind, today's connected world offers an unprecedented opportunity to harness crowdsourcing for gathering data on species occurrence, distribution, behaviors, and other aspects. Think about this. There are almost 8 billion people in the world. 60% live near to the coast. 1 billion people travel annually to international destinations, many of which are marine and coastal. And there are more than 6.6 billion smartphone subscribers globally. This is 80% of the global population. By tapping this observation effort, we can truly go from data deficiency to big data for sharks. Shark Polls aims to create a comprehensive database of shark photo sightings by warehousing all shark images available online. This project started as a citizen science initiative for years, piggybacking on other projects. Initially, we developed two mobile applications allowing users to send their images directly to our database. Then we developed web applications allowing users to upload images from their digital archives. We also encouraged users to share pictures on their favorite social networks, which we could then mine. These data streamed directly into our database to be organized, elaborated, and reshared with users for data enrichment. This work generated a Germinal Core database already useful for research. Currently, we have 47,979 validated photo records. These pertain to 537 identified species of sharks and their relatives, 41% of all the shark species. This conventional citizen science approach needs effort to nurture and boost participation. People may download your app and submit a few sightings initially, but then participation fades down. To speed up and bolster this process, we understood that the real frontier is automation and AI. Shark Polls is now transitioning from asking data to people to mining information. We are boosting our core database with automation, web scraping, crawling, and mining, and using artificial intelligence. Citizen science and traditional crowdsourcing are still important components, but they are increasingly used for validation and expertise rather than data collection. The platform is expanding and becoming increasingly cybernetic with the creation of multiple automatic data pipelines able to inflate this database by orders of magnitude. Here is an example of one of these pipelines. These are Flickr data. Flickr is one of the most popular photo sharing platforms online. In this example, we mined about 10,000 images tagged as sharks. The challenge here is filtering these records for pictures of actual sharks, dead or alive, and not from aquarium. As you can see, this initial pool contains many relevant pictures, images of San Jose sharks, sushi menus, restaurant banners, and so on. We can use geospatial approaches to eliminate photos within continents or within a certain radius from aquaria or other institutions having captive sharks. This pre-filtering retains 1176 images, a bit more than 10% of the original data, but there are still a lot of inappropriate pictures. Here's where citizen science can play a critical role in helping us validate this cloud of images. People can donate as little as a few minutes of their time and validate our records. They can use our validation monitor, where we project images mined from social networks and help us find real sharks. When users click on individual records, a form asks whether this is a shark picture, what species, and to include comments regarding this observation, for example, confidence about the species identification. This form is a dashboard where users are suggested the likely species name by our AI classifier, can use an interactive taxonomic guide for species identification, or have links to show the original context of the focal picture, for example, the original photo album containing comments and other texts included by the authors, or to explore the record in Google Maps to find whether the shark came from natural or captive conditions. This process also awards points to users to reward their effort. And we award prizes during specific events to motivate users to interact with the platform and stimulate participation. These processes are the dual benefit of producing validated records for analysis and refining our ability to automatically create this information with artificial intelligence. In fact, one of the main modules of shark pools is the shark detector, an ensemble of deep learning models we developed to detect and classify shark pictures from pools of unlabeled images. This is not a trivial task. With more than 560 species of sharks, we use more than 100,000 images to train these models, which now can recognize a shark from untagged images more than 91% of the times, and classify 47 species or 26 genera with an average accuracy of 70%. The pool of learned species is increasingly expanding as more images are ingested and validated. We are making all this effort to create data and fill knowledge gaps in shark ecology and biology. Tangible science results are already emerging with our Germinal core dataset. Here is an example from the Mediterranean Sea, where we synthesized the shark pools data to overview the status in diversity and abundance of local sharks. This is a region where sharks are in extremely poor conservation status. Most species are threatened, and half of the remaining ones are data deficient. Analysis of these records detected hotspots of critically endangered species, trends in abundance of the most frequently recorded sharks, range expansions for 5 species, and pinpointed location for important critical stages of large pelagic sharks in need of conservation. Development in artificial intelligence and big data computing offer new opportunities for scientific research, including the conservation of endangered species. Shark Pools is taking on this task by bolstering crowd and citizen science with data mining, web crawling, and artificial intelligence to create a comprehensive database of photo-based shark records available for research and practice. This work is intense and intricate and requires substantial investment of resources for developing cyber infrastructures and fostering collaboration. However, it promises to be game-changing and contribute to shifting sharks from problematic data deficiency to big data in a cost-effective and timely manner. And now I want to thank you and I welcome all your questions, and I want to acknowledge my collaborators, Jeremy Gernet, Edward Fox, Fiorenza Michela, Cherry Butner, Zach Liu, Trevor Asti, Stefano Moro, Stephen Haddock, and Salvador Jorgensen, and all the other collaborators that collaborated to create this platform. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I don't think I'd ever thought about citizen science in this big data way ever before this. So that's been a real big eye opener, and I'm sure you'll have a lot of interest in this. So thank you to all the speakers from today for all your great talks. I learned so much about so many different contexts. And given that we've had hundreds of people kind of tuning in over the last few days and today, I'm sure that everyone has really learned a lot too. Maybe while we wait for a few more questions to come in, we can start off by looking at what people answered in response to the polls, and we can bring everyone up to kind of discuss some of these questions that we had asked people during the session. So it seems like many of the people who joined in today have had some experience with citizen science. And for instance, they seem to feel that the best way to involve people in citizen science is through workshops with communities. And since all of you on the panel have had some experience with citizen science, I was wondering what you feel about the relative costs versus benefits of trying to make people participate either through face-to-face interactions with people or online methods like social media. What do you think is the best way to keep a citizen science project going?
I think it's so for what we learned in our project is it's truly a challenge to keep people motivated. So you need a lot of promotion, you need a lot of initiatives, you need a lot of communication to just keep reminding people that we are doing this project, that people are doing this project, and this is important. They may be very willing to collaborate and contribute, but they just forget or may lose track of the what was the project that I needed to send that image, or so it's truly important to just adopt a very to put a lot of effort into communication.
Ravaka, did you want to add something?
Yeah, one important thing what we noticed also in Madagascar is the feedback. Once we have information and how do we use and how do we get back to data collected, but to the community also on what has been collected so far, what is happening in their sites, as our intervention is on a site-based intervention. So once they are aware that the information that we gather are valorized and that we use and we give feedback to them, they are willing to contribute to the data for during the catch surveys, and also to help us on why do we collect the data and how the best could we value the data they have collected with us, and then how the best jointly can we define the suitable measure to preserve, to conserve also the species. Thank you.
Faqih, do you want to add something, since you also, brought this up during your talk?
Yeah, I think it depends. We get some differences with the other projects here in citizen science. For us, it's definitely social media, but it will differ with the target community that we are going to target with the citizen science. But more importantly, we have to let people know that the project is still running, it's still ongoing, by keeping information. It does not have to be. We don't really have to post persuasive posts all the time. We can post information just to let them know, hey, we are still running. The platform is open. That's also because the citizen science that we do is passive with the website platform, so we have to let them know that we are here. Yeah, I think that's the most simple way to let people know, because we never know when they will be able to have the information and will be able to share the information with us.
Thank you very much, everyone, for all your answers about this. Maybe we can move to the next question that we had in the poll, which was if you think that citizen science is a reliable source of data and that can become into like scientific data that we can use for research. The votes that we had, it's most of them said yes. No one said no, which is great. But we just had some people that think that this data will be just useful if it comes from properly trained people that have been working in the field before, like NGOs or divers, etc. So what do you think? Maybe Francesco, you want to hop in about this?
Yeah, I think so. Like, I think it's a reliable source of scientific data. I think it's important to understand the audience and to understand the group you are sourcing data from, the information. For example, in our data validation, in the validation monitor we can also profile users in their reliability. Like we can score users in terms of and they can get points, and eventually they can get also rewards. So it's like a game, but this game helps us to understand who's good, who's not, in terms of identifying the species and providing us with other information. There are tricks that you can use. You can embed within your data sets already known information and see and test what the level of accuracy that you can get from the citizen scientists. Also, for example, since we are working with lay people, so everyday people that may not be and are often not the shark experts, we are also developing tools and interactive identification guides that are specifically tailored to help whoever doesn't know anything about sharks or shark taxonomy in identifying the species. So being like the effort here is being extremely precise with the questions you are asking, what kind of information they need to see from the images, and then from this acquiring this information from them. So it's always there is there is always some work to be done in digesting and integrating this information that you are collecting from the people.
Just kind of stepping in here before Faqih responds, I also see that there is a related question from Sebastian Gomez, who asks, how do you effectively handle the data given the diverse levels of experience, interest, and willingness among participants in the projects when it comes to completing all the required data? Do you have an established mechanism for evaluating quality? So I was wondering if the next people who are responding to this could also add something about this question.
Yes, if I may. Yeah, adding to from Francesco before, I believe there should be another option. It's yes, but it depends on how you want to use the data and what kind of data are you looking for. So it goes to the most basic things that the first question about citizen science data would be, is this reliable or not? And for us, that will start with, are you sure with the species identification or not, right? But then again, if we are not sure about the species, we can still use the data as a kind of a baseline or reference to conduct a more detailed scientific assessment there, right? So I believe there's no data that is unreliable from citizen science. It's just how you're gonna take that data and what do you want to do with it, because it's going to be a waste just to throw that way, right? And going with the validation, I think I can add a little bit with making the mechanism of the citizen science as simple as possible. And for us, the only requirement that we ask to the contributors would be the location, the date, and the time, as well as the picture, right? So we will never ask for what is the species. Even for us scientists, we still have difficulties in identifying shock and race, especially with the characterinates, right? So we have a specialized team in our project to verify all the pictures that came into us, and the pictures themselves serve as a quality control for all the citizen science data that came into us. Another thing will be with the location, right? So you want to make sure that the location is as precise as possible. So instead of asking, so it goes back to the design, how you make it simple, but how you make it accurate. So instead of asking, where do you see the species, and having them answer it with words, you provide them with map where they can drop a pin, and then the coordinate will be automatically recorded, right? That makes it simpler, and they can provide you a better accuracy of the location where they found the species. Maybe the others can add more to that. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just adding on behalf of Pilar because she's having some issues with speaking today. So she suggests that, how you define quality completely depends on the objective of your project. If you need certain types of precise information, then perhaps you should depend on trained participants rather than completely untrained ones. And I just wanted to add to that perhaps some of your questions just might be what are the gaps in how the public perceives certain things, or what do they notice or not notice. And if those are your research questions, then perhaps having completely untrained people doing things makes sense. Christelle, perhaps you could add something here as well.
Yes, about the quality of data from Madagascar, we do more capacity building and follow up the data collector with technical assistance. And also, once we have the database, we clean the collected data and do some catch up with the data collector. So if we have some problems about the data quality. But we currently use Kobo Toolbox to ensure the data quality too, and concerning the species of sharks and ray species. Sorry, we photograph the specimens and identify them properly with a shark and ray specialist. So it depends on the data that we need. Thanks.
Okay, so we have a couple of questions here with respect to ethical issues. And I was wondering if any of you had ever come across things like that. So there's a question from Fabio Motta, who asks, how do you deal with ethical issues when accessing social networks? And this is directed to Francesco. Does your project only use open profiles? And there was a there's a question from Sarah asking about, collecting data from Iran, and that a lot of the shark fishing is illegal. So how do you collect data on illegal stuff using citizen science?
So for the social network accessing the data, we are accessing only open data. So we are using API and programs that can access only what you share publicly. And also when you want to interact in our website, sharkpools.org, you can use your Google Gmail account, and we only see whatever you make public of this account, but it helps us to just have a unique identity for each one interacting with our websites and applications. So we are not using anything that you do not consent to be shared.
Has anyone else come across, trying to find ways to record activities that are illegal? I mean, my suspicion is that citizen science is perhaps not the most appropriate method for trying to record illegal activity, that you probably need to use other methods. And I see that David Schiffman has added some references that people can read about the ethics of using either social media data or other kinds of data in fisheries research.
But for example, for sharing your pictures, you may end up like people share on social network pictures from areas where sharks are being killed or sold, and this is an illegal practice. So that is also a proof and evidence of illegal activity as well. So you can use the evidence as well.
Yeah, I think I agree with Francesco. If we are being active to ask the fisher to be a citizen scientist when the practice itself is illegal, I think the question will go back to the issue, and I don't think citizen science would be the best approach for that. But we know that fishers nowadays have mobile phones, social media. Maybe we can go around the back alley without having the need to kind of support illegal activity by asking them to provide you with information, but they will eventually, post what they do, something like that. And I think with the shark pools approach, that will be the best if that can help.
Talking about all this illegal thing, yesterday during the workshop, I think Alifa mentioned that sometimes when they are doing local ecological knowledge interviews, etc., they come across some illegal activities, and how they kind of solve it or go through it is just making sure that the data will be anonymous or that they won't be able to track back to these people. So maybe this way can be like a better way of applying to study these illegal activities.
Great. Thank you so much for all your responses. So now I will move on to some of the specific questions to individual speakers. So let's start with Faqih. I think you have a couple of questions. First, about how you expanded the use of the website to communities across Indonesia. Was it word of mouth, or did you have to actively do something? And the second related question is, how do you keep people motivated in the long term?
Yeah, thank you for the questions, guys. So the first one with the website is actually we only did it with social media at first, and it's not like people will know about what you do without you telling them first. So the concept will be that you have to go for the ball first before the ball will eventually go back to you. So with social media, we mainly use Instagram, where you can just put the keywords shark Indonesia, and then you will see people diving in Raja Ampat in Bali, and then seeing some shark and rays, and then we approach them through the comments or through direct message. And once again, we did make sure to be ethical by only approaching people in the comment section if they are protected, or you can just direct message them if they're open. Regarding with the fishing communities, that was also the aim when we made the website initially, but as it is right now, we have no information actually submitted from fishers or from the fishing communities. That being said, that we know that fishers right now have access to internet and etc. But most of the time, they will not have time to open website, type their name, fill out detailed information, and that's also the reason in the project that we have in one of the national park here, we have a different approach. So we did not provide them with the website. We provide them with a WhatsApp group, something that they use every day, something simple that they can just share a picture, and then we can ask a detailed information later on. I hope that answers the first question. And for the second one would be, you just don't be a debt collector with citizen science contributors. Just let them do their things. Let them send you information when they want it. You know, encourage them to give information to you or provide the information passively. If they are following you in the social media, or if you know them personally and they have important information, for us the basic with the citizen science would be that they have to be voluntarily wants to participate in sending the data. So you don't have to keep nagging them. So to keep them still in the circle, there will be a time when they will want to submit the data that they have, the photos, because from our experience, even tourism operators that operates in waters with manta rays all year round, they will not be submitting their photos because they have no interest in conservation. But you can make posts, hey, see if these people is doing citizen science for conservation, and it will add economic additional value to their operating in the tourism sectors, and hopefully that can engage them passively as time goes. I hope that answers. Back to you, Divya.
That's great. I have a couple of questions about the quantitative side of collecting this data. One of which I think is directed to Pilar, but I'm going to include Francesco in this just to give Pilar some time to type her response. So there is a question from Eduardo. about using diverse citizen science for recording individuals. How do you avoid counting the same individual more than once in terms of quantitative data? And similarly, there's also a question from Sudha asking what modifications and considerations do you have to take to ensure that the same shark and ray individual that's photographed by different people aren't double counted. So this is especially true if it's from a tourist experience, or does it completely depend on the question?
So for the first questions, yes, like I mean, there is always the it depends on the population, how abundant is this population, how localized is your survey. If you're doing like a scuba diving visual census survey, like in an area where you are counting sharks, or there are very residential, that may be the case that you are may count twice the same individuals, but in the grand scheme of things, I guess in terms of abundance and density, it may not be a problem, because this would be a minimal or a marginal problem, unless you have a shark that is around you all the time, or so I guess in terms, like, you will count more distinct individuals than the same individual. So it depends really on the scale of your operations, how broad is your survey, how intensive is your sampling, and so on. Usually, then there are other citizen science projects that are actually looking into identifying specific individuals from the patterns of the whale sharks or zebra sharks, or so finding individuals and identifying individuals for tracking them, for seeing their movements, where they are in different periods, or their home range, and so on. So it truly depends, again, from your questions, and again from the scheme of your sampling and your sampling intensity. But usually it's not a big problem in terms of for what we are doing, tracking distribution, abundance, and especially with this broad ranging animals.
And what if you get them at landing sites and you have perhaps different people having taken pictures of the same individual at the same landing site?
That is an interesting question. Usually we have so a shark pose or a sighting, it should be something that happened sometime, somewhere, at a specific discrete interval. If you see the same picture, they are the same. They are very close one another in their geographic position, and very close one another in terms of times, and maybe possibly is the same individual. You also see from the pictures where there it may be very not difficult to recognize the same individual, and you may count that as just one sighting. So you have multiple pictures which we use for training our models in the visual identification of sharks, but in terms of occurrence records, that would count as one.
Okay, and I see that Pilar has also said something very similar. So Pilar says, I used to filter the data by place, date, and time, and only keep one of the reports. Yeah. For example, if you receive 2 reports on the same species of shark the same day at the same place, I eliminate one. And if one report is about 2 individuals and the other report is about 1 individual, I just use the one with the highest number of individuals.
Yeah, it's totally dependent on your analysis. Yes, it's totally, yeah. You can filter out the data in this way, or adopt more stringent thresholds of filter, like if they are separated by 1 hour after the other, and if you cannot discriminate and tell that these are the same species, you may take them as 2 sightings. Or it totally depends on the context and what you are seeing from the images. They are candidate to be similar individuals.
Okay. We have some more questions to Francesco regarding the isolated population of Mediterranean great whites. This is from Hakan Kabasakal. What do you suppose the population size of this flagship shark is in this region based on big data? Yeah.
Sorry, I read the questions, but I had a broken sound. But yeah, thank you, Akan. We are using shark pools data to work out and estimate habitat models for the species. So those are useful also for as sightings. And shark pools data is mostly recent sightings, and these are very useful for telling us where the population remains and what are the last strongholds of this population. For estimating abundance, this is a little bit more difficult, and we are using other approaches, integrating other approaches like stock assessment, reconstruction of fisheries, and reconstructing catches based on the fishing intensity in an area. So the shark pools data are not sufficient, but definitely they are very useful to tell us where these animals remains and when they are seen, especially now that they are being shared in social networks.
Okay, and we have another question to Dr. Pilar from Josephat. And I am going to kind of expand that question a little bit so that Ravaka and Christelle can also respond. So Josephat asks, what about the local community in, I don't know how to pronounce this place, Quintana Roo? Do they not participate in the contributions of citizen science? Why do you only obtain data from divers? And I similarly wanted to ask about, how has it been to try and get the local community in Madagascar involved in this, because they are quite different from the sort of regular citizen science from tourists and other people that we are seeing in other places. So maybe Ravaka, if you want to step in first.
Yeah, thanks, Eva. In fact, we run the campaign of awareness raising with two local communities, targeting for local communities on the status of biomass and shark based on the previous surveys, scientific surveys that WCS has run and just has implemented, and then we share with them the importance of having reliable data and to share so as to identify the suitable measures. And that's why we set up this catch CPUE, the catch per unit effort survey, and involving local fishers. So there was a scientific research first, followed by a campaign of awareness raising, and then we selected the fishers that will be involved in the catch surveys. Just to mention that these agents are based on a voluntary. It is on a voluntary basis when we select the participant, the CPUE agent. They should be. There is a criteria in terms of they have the ability to write and to record data, and also they are willing to work in the field and and sensitizing people. And we have selected people based on their willingness to do the survey, and then also it also raised a kind of relationship, consolidated relationship with local fishers in the area. So a series of activities prior to launching this catch surveys. Like we run this scientific research in late 2000, early 2020, 2010 till 2014, and then ran the awareness raising from 2014 to 2016 and launched the citizen science starting from 2016 until now, like working with the fishers for data collection and awareness raising on shark and rays and global fishing practice. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Pilar, okay. Pilar says that they have also received information from other sources such as fishers and local people that used to be at sea frequently. So perhaps it was not just the divers, and maybe you presented only a lot of the diver information. All right. So I think we also have a couple of questions that maybe Francesco can directly respond to in the chat about how people can, work with Shark Pulse and so on.
Do you
want to say something?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, they can. People can go to sharkpulse.org. And then actually, if you want to make us a favor, I would love to have your feedback on our validation applications. So you go to monitors, and you can choose to, you can help us validate the images we are sourcing from Flickr and Instagram, and there it's a symbol. Will ask you whether this is a real shark in the wild. Whether it's from an aquaria, and then you can also look. There are tools or links that directs you to the source of the information to just check out whether actually this image is coming from an institution or from land, or and also you can also try to guess the species. If you are interacting as a registered user, you get points from this, and then you'll appear in our leaderboard. And then you will get more points for more species that you validate, and for whether or not you include the species, the common names, and also there are differential points, and depending on how rare is a species. But it's a good and please send us feedback and comments. In the comments in the specific form, there is also a field where you can include comments, and there you are free to tell us whatever you want, whether it's easy to interact with this, it can be pertaining to how hard is interacting or identifying the species and so on, so that we can use these comments for feedback and for improving the platform. So sharkpulse.org.
Yeah, I'm sure you can, type it into the chat and everyone will have it there. Okay, so I think we've sort of come to the end of another exciting day of this workshop. So thank you again to all the speakers, and thanks to the speakers of all the past days for spending their time and volunteering their time to participate. Again, I'd like to remind you all that we have an interactive session tomorrow, which will be starting an hour later than usual. So I would be very happy to see all of you there, and talking to each other about these different topics. I'm sure you can also move between sessions if you want. So I look forward to seeing you there, and thank you very much for joining. Thanks again to everyone who participated in this.
Thank you.